Hello, it's time for another Christmas story, and today our story is titled Christmas Day in the Morning by Pearl S. Buck. He waked suddenly and completely. It was 4 o'clock in the morning, the hour at which his father had always called him to get up and help with the milking. Strange how the habits of his youth clung to him still. 50 years ago, and his father had been dead for 30. And yet he waked at 4 o'clock in the morning, every morning. He had trained himself to turn over and go to sleep, but this morning, because it was Christmas, he did not. He slipped back in time, as he did so easily nowadays. He was 15 years old and still on his father's farm. He loved his father, but he had not known it until one day, just a few days before Christmas, when he overheard what his father was saying to his mother. "Mary, I hate to call Rob in the mornings. He's growing so fast and he needs his sleep. If you could see how he sleeps when I go in to wake him up. I wish I could manage alone." "Well, you can't, Adam," said his mother. "Besides, he isn't a child any more. It's time he took his turn." "Yes," said his father slowly, "but I sure do hate to wake him." When Rob heard those words, something in him woke. His father loved him. He had never thought of it before, taking for granted the tie of blood. Neither had his father nor his mother had ever talked about loving their children. They had no time for such things. There was always so much to do on a farm. Now that he knew his father loved him, there would be no more loitering in the mornings and having to be called again. He got up after that, stumbling with sleep, and pulled on his clothes with his eyes shut, but he got up. And then one night before Christmas, that year when he was 15, he lay for a few minutes thinking about the next day. They were poor, and most of the excitement was in the turkey they had raised themselves and in the mince pie his mother made. His sisters sewed presents, and his mother and father always bought something he needed, not only a warm jacket maybe, but something more, such as a book. And he saved and bought them each something too. He wished that Christmas he was 15. He had a better present for his father. As usual, he had gone to the 10-cent store and bought him a tie. It had seemed nice enough until he lay thinking the night before Christmas, and then he wished he had heard his mother and father talking in time for him to save for something better. He lay on his side, his head supported by his elbow, and looked out of his attic window. The stars were bright, much brighter than he ever remembered them being, and one was so bright he wondered if it really were the Star of Bethlehem. "Dad," he had once asked when he was a little boy, "what is a stable?" "Oh, it's just a barn," said his father, "like ours." Then Jesus had been born in a barn, and to a barn the shepherds and the wise men had come, bringing their Christmas gifts. The thought struck him like a silver dagger. Why should he not give his father a special gift too, out there in the barn? He could get up early, earlier than 4 o'clock, and he could creep into the barn and get all the milking done. He'd do it alone, milk and clean up, and then when his father went in to start the milking, he'd see it all done, and he would know who had done it. At 2:45, Rob got up and put on his clothes. He crept downstairs, careful of the creaky boards, and let himself out. The big star hung lower over the barn roof, a reddish gold. The cows looked at him, sleepy and surprised. "So, boss," he said. They accepted him placidly, and he fetched some hay for each cow and then got the milking pail and the big milk cans. He had never milked all alone before, but it seemed almost easy. He kept thinking about his father's surprise. His father would come in and call him, saying he would get things started while Rob was getting dressed. He'd go to the barn, open the door, and then he'd go to get the 2 big empty milk cans. Only they wouldn't be waiting or empty. They'd be standing in the milk house, filled. The task went more easily than he had ever known it to be before. Milking, for once, was not a chore. It was something else, a gift to his father who loved him. He finished, The 2 milk cans were full, and he covered them and closed the milk house door carefully, making sure of the latch. He put the stool in its place by the door and hung up the clean milk pail. Then he went out of the barn and barred the door behind him. Back in his room, he had only a minute to pull off his clothes in the darkness and jump into bed before he heard his father come. He put the covers over his head to silence his quick breathing. The door opened. "Rob," his father called, "you have to get up, son, even if it's Christmas." "All right," he said sleepily. "I'll go on out," his father said. "I'll get things started." The door closed, and he lay still, laughing to himself. In just a few minutes his father would know. His dancing heart was ready to jump from his body. The minutes were endless. 10, 15, he did not know how many, and he heard his father's steps again. The door opened, and Rob lay still. "Rob!" "Yes, Dad?" His father was laughing, a queer, sobbing sort of laugh. "Thought you'd fool me, did ya?" His father was standing beside him, pulling away the covers. "It's for Christmas, Dad." He found his father and clutched him in a great big hug. He felt his father's arms go round him. It was dark, and they could not see each other's faces. "Son, I thank you. Nobody ever did a nicer thing." "Oh, Dad, I want you to know. I do want to be good." The words broke from him of their own will. He did not know what to say. His heart was bursting with such love. "Well, I reckon I can go back to bed and sleep," his father said after a moment. "No, hark, the little ones are waked up. Come to think of it, son, I've never seen you children when you first saw the Christmas tree. I was always in the barn. Come on." Rob got up and pulled on his clothes again, and they went down to the Christmas tree. And soon the sun was creeping up where the star had been. Oh, what a Christmas! And how his heart had nearly burst again with shyness and pride as his father told his mother and made the younger children listen how he, Rob, had gotten up all by himself. "The best Christmas gift I ever had, and I'll remember it, son, every year on Christmas morning so long as I live." They both remembered it. And now that his father was dead, he remembered it alone. That blessed Christmas dawn, when alone with the cows in the barn, he had made his first gift of true love. And that's the end of Christmas Day in the Morning by Pearl S. Buck. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time.